Hello everyone, and welcome to my CBS Wonderful Today channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Eric destroys Katie's trust. The shocking plot that changes everything. The bold and the beautiful spoilers for Monday, February 2nd, hints that Eric Forrester will unveil a surprise, but Katie Logan Spencer and Bill Spencer will be sworn to secretiveness. It's been an extremely long cleaner day on B&B, so there's a good chance Monday's occasion will bring a fresh launch to protest off the week. It's been a while since the show let suckers check in with the gang at Logan, but some positive developments are on the way. Now that Katie has hired Eric as her lead developer, she knows her fashion house is in good hands. Katie trusts Eric fully when it comes to his gift and experience, so she knows she won't be dissatisfied. Still, Katie will be indeed more blown down than she anticipated when Eric shows off his new designs. Eric will unveil some sketches and leave Katie over the moon since his vision for Logan matches hers exactly. Of course, Eric will be glad he can deliver commodity Katie approves of, and will hope to set her up for success. This job is giving Eric chance to explore his passion and feel useful again, so he'll be pleased that he came out of withdrawal for this. Katie and Eric's arrangement is working out well so far. But that's only because no Bone, a Forrester Creations knows about it yet. Eric will reiterate his desire to keep it that way for now, so Katie and Bill will assure him that his secret is safe. The verity has to come out ultimately, so Eric is really delaying the ineluctable. In fact, this detention could end up making effects worse once Ridge Forrester and Brooke Logan Forrester feel blindsided down the road. In the meantime, Dylan will have a big decision to make regarding Ivy Forrester's claim. Ivy pushed Dylan to take a gob of cash and leave city, or differently she'll tell Electra Forrester everything she witnessed. Ivy suggested Dylan could pretend she got a job far down, but will Dylan really be willing to do that? Anyhow, we know Dylan will eventually stick around and could form an intriguing bond with RJ Forrester, once they've an hassle at Forrester Creations. The bold and the beautiful spoilers say RJ, Dylan, Electra and Will Spencer will form an intriguing love quadrangle. So stay tuned for updates on any major romantic news to come. In the golden gleam of the late autumn sun discovering through the altitudinous windows of the Forrester manse, everything looked deceptively peaceful. The soft howl of wind trees outdoors, the familiar fineness of the living room, the quiet hum of a home that had witnessed generations of love, treason, and conciliation, it all suggested calm. But beneath that polished face, a storm was formerly forming. And at the center of it stood Eric Forrester, the primogenitor whose choices had always shaped the fortune of his family for better or worse. Katie Logan believed, maybe foolishly, that this time was different. She stood near the fireplace, her hands clasped tightly together, trying to undergird the anxious beat of her heart. She had trusted Eric, truly trusted him, in a way she hadn't trusted numerous people in her life. After times of heartache, health scares, and romantic disappointment, Eric had offered her commodity rare honesty, respect, and a cooperation erected on collective understanding, rather than manipulation. Or so she allowed. Eric entered the room sluggishly, his expression undecipherable. He carried himself with the authority of a man who had spent decades commanding boardrooms and family feasts likewise. Yet moment there was commodity heavier in his posture, commodity guarded. Katie noticed it incontinently. "Eric," she said vocally, forcing a small smile. "You wanted to see me?" "Yes," he replied, his voice calm but distant. "We need to talk." Those 4 words had no way meant anything good in the Forrester world. Katie jounced and signaled for him to sit. "Is commodity wrong?" Eric dithered. That vacillation, detail, nearly inappreciable, was the first crack in Katie's trust. A secret too big to ignore. Eric had always been a man of vision. When he saw an occasion, he took it, believing the ends justified the means. Lately, Forrester Creations had been facing quiet but dangerous fiscal insecurity. Nothing public yet, nothing that would alarm shareholders. But Eric knew the verity. The company was vulnerable, and so was Katie. As chief operating officer, Katie had access to sensitive fiscal data. She believed Eric when he told her he wanted translucency, cooperation, and participated decision timber. What she didn't know was that Eric had formerly gone behind her reverse. Weeks before, Eric had intimately authorized a high-threat fiscal initiative, One that involved dealing partial control of a Heritage Forrester attachment to an outside investor. An investor with a complicated history. An investor Katie had explicitly advised him about. Bill Spencer. Eric justified it as a necessary wrong. Bill had the capital. Bill had the power. And Bill always came with strings attached. What Eric didn't anticipate was how ruinous it would be when Katie set up out, not just professionally but tête-à-tête. The moment everything shatters. I set up commodity, Katie said suddenly, breaking the silence. She held up a tablet, her hands pulsing now. I was reviewing last quarter's reports. There's a sale then I didn't authorize. One that needed both our autographs. Eric closed his eyes compactly. Katie's breath caught. Eric, why does this document have your authorization and Bill Spencer's? The room sounded to indurate. Eric uncurled. Katie, hear to me. No, she snapped, her voice sharp with pain. You hear to me. You promised me there would be no secrets. You promised me we were mates. I did what I had to do to cover Forrester Creations, Eric said forcefully. This company is my life. And I wasn't worth trusting? Katie asked, gashes welling in her eyes. You went to Bill. Of all people. You went to the man who nearly destroyed my family. This wasn't about you and Bill, Eric claimed. Katie laughed plaintively. Everything with Bill is about me. You know that. Her voice broke as the consummation settled in. Not just that Eric had prevaricated, but that he'd used her trust as a guard while he made opinions that could hang her ever. The deepest treason. What hurt most wasn't the business decision itself, it was the manipulation. Katie uncovered the verity piece by piece. Emails Eric had deleted. Meetings he claimed no way happened. Legal documents drafted in secretiveness. And worst of all, clauses in the agreement that deposited Katie as the public face of the decision, should effects go awry. You set me up, Katie rumored, gaping at Eric in disbelief. However, I take the fall. If this deal backfires. Eric didn't deny it. I allowed. It would no way come to that, he said still. That's not an answer, Katie replied, gashes streaming freely now. That's poltroonery. In that moment, the man she respected, the man she believed admired her, dissolved. What remained was the ruthless Forrester primogenitor, who believed his heritage signified further than the people standing beside him. Ripple goods through the family. News traveled presto. Ridge was furious. You used Katie as insurance? He demanded of his father. That's not leadership, that's treason. Donna was agonized, torn between fidelity to her family and the man she had loved for times. Eric, how could you do this to her? She cried. After everything she's been through? Indeed, Brooke, no foreigner to treason herself, plotted to defend Eric. This crosses a line, she said still. Indeed for you. And Bill Spencer? He was amused. Katie brazened him at Spencer Publications, her wrathfulness blazing. You knew this would hurt me. Bill didn't deny it. I knew Eric would choose the company over you. He always chooses power. That verity cut deeper than any taradiddle. Katie's strength emerges. But Katie Logan wasn't the woman she used to be. Rather of worsening, she fought back. She hired her own legal counsel. She exposed the full compass of the deal before Eric could control the narrative. She made it clear that she'd not be the fall Joe for opinion she no way acceded to. Most importantly, she walked down from Eric, from the cooperation, and from the vision that trust was guaranteed simply because someone claimed to love you. I believed in you, she told Eric during their final battle. And you destroyed that belief. Not by making a mistake but by choosing to lie. Eric watched her leave, realizing too late that some effects, formerly broken, cannot be rebuilt. The consequences that change everything. Forrester Creations survived, but it was ever altered. Eric's authority was questioned like no way ahead. Ridge began pushing for structural changes. Trust within the family fractured. And Katie surfaced stronger, more independent, and more dangerous than anyone anticipated. Fortified with the verity and no reason left to cover Eric's character. As she stepped into her new future, one verity echoed through every corner of the Forrester macrocosm. Eric Forrester didn't just lose Katie's trust. He lost the moral high ground, and the family would no way be the same again. The silence Eric Forrester faced after Katie walked out of the manse was louder than any argument he'd ever endured. The frontal door unrestricted vocally behind her, but the futurity of it echoed through the walls like a projectile. For the first time in his life, Eric stood alone in his own home and felt Commodity's strange claw at his casket, not wrathfulness, not frustration but remorse. Real remorse. He moved sluggishly toward the window, watching as Katie stepped into the sun outdoors. She didn't look back. That was what scarified him most. A woman betrayed, not broken. Katie drove erratically through Los Angeles, gashes blurring the megacity thoroughfares into stripes of light and shadow. Every memory of Eric replayed in her mind: the quiet feasts, the pledges rumored late at night, the way he'd looked at her and sworn she was his equal. She realized now how desperately she'd wanted to believe that. "This isn't your fault," she rumored to herself, gripping the steering wheel tighter. "You trusted. That's not a crime." But the treason cut deeper than love or business. It struck at her sense of worth. Katie had spent important of her life feeling like the lower Logan, the family who came second to Brooke, the woman whose happiness always sounded temporary. With Eric, she believed she had eventually stepped into a space where she was valued not as a consolation prize, but as a mate. And Eric had destroyed that vision with perfection. She wiped her face and pulled into the parking lot of a quiet office structure. The sign outdoors read Logan Consulting Group, a establishment she'd still invested in months before. No way imagining she'd need it so soon. But now, it represented Commodity important independence. Katie was running. She was regrouping. Eric's justification, and his denial. Back at the Forrester manse, Eric poured himself a drink he slightly tasted. Donna stood hard, arms crossed, her eyes full of disappointment. "You didn't just hurt her," Donna said still. "You lowered her." Eric bristled. "I defended this family." "No," Donna shot back. "You defended control. There's a difference." Her words soaked because they were true. Eric had always believed himself able of separating emotion from business. But Katie had blurred those lines in ways he hadn't anticipated, and when faced with fear, he'd regressed to instinct. Dominance. Secrecy. Power. "What did you anticipate me to do?" Eric asked defensively. "Sit back and watch everything I erected deteriorate?" Donna's voice softened. "I anticipated you to trust the woman you claimed to love." That blameworthiness dallied long after Donna left the room. Crest draws a line. Rich Forrester didn't stay long to defy his father. The meeting at Forrester Creations was tense, the air thick with undetermined wrathfulness. Rich stood at the head of the conference table, arms braced against the polished wood. "You went behind Katie's back," Rich said bluntly. "And you exposed the company to Bill Spencer." Eric met his son's aspect. "I made a advised decision." "You made a selfish one," Rich snapped. "Katie kept this company steady when everyone differently was falling piecemeal. And you awarded her by making her expendable." Eric's jaw tensed. "I wouldn't apologize for guarding this company. Also, you'd more get used to guarding it alone," Rich replied. "Because effects are changing." For the first time, Eric realized this wasn't just about Katie. This was about his heritage. Bill Spencer smells blood. Bill Spencer thrived on chaos, and Eric had handed it to him on a tableware server. Sitting behind his office, Bill reviewed the rearmost developments with satisfaction. Katie's abdication from her susurrus position had formerly sparked rumors. Shareholders were nervous. The press was circling. And Bill knew exactly how to exploit it. "She's done playing nice," Bill murmured, recalling the look in Katie's eyes during their last battle. That fire had always attracted him, and spooked him. Bill wasn't upset about Katie going after him. What intrigued him was how far she might go against Eric. Because if Katie Logan decided to burn the Forrester conglomerate down, Bill intended to be standing right beside the deers. Katie takes control of the narrative. Katie's first move surprised everyone. Rather of cashing, she went public. Not with allegations but with verity. In a precisely articulated interview, Katie blazoned her departure from Forrester Creations, citing irreconcilable differences in leadership ethics. She spoke calmly, professionally, and with unmistakable authority. "I believe translucency is essential to any successful cooperation," she said. And when that translucency is compromised, it's time to step down. The world heated. Investors took notice. And Eric Forrester's character took its first real mega hit. Brooke is caught in the middle. Brooke Logan watched the interview from her living room, her heart heavy. She knew that pain. Knew what it felt like to trust a Forrester and pay the price. When she met with Eric latterly that day, she didn't raise her voice. That could have been me, Brooke said still. Any of us. Eric rubbed his tabernacles. I no way meant for it to go this far. That's what scares me, Brooke replied. You didn't mean to, and you did it anyway. Her words echoed Katie's. And Eric began to understand the true cost of his conduct. The woman Katie becomes. Days turned into weeks. Katie didn't retreat, she evolved. She expanded Logan Consulting, attracting high-profile guests impressed by her integrity and adaptability. She girdled herself with people who admired her boundaries and her brilliance. For the first time in times, Katie wasn't defined by a relationship. She was defined by herself. And that alarmed Eric further than losing control of Forrester Creations ever could. Eric faces his topmost fear. Late one night, Eric sat alone in his office, gaping at old photos lining the walls. Family pictures, fashion triumphs, moments firmed in time. He'd erected an conglomerate. But he'd lost commodity far more fragile. Trust. And unlike plutocrat, power, or prestige, trust couldn't be bought back. Eric Forrester eventually understood that the shocking plot he'd set in stir hadn't just changed Katie's life. It had changed his ever. The morning sun crept sluggishly over Los Angeles, illuminating the megacity with a deceptive calm. For Katie Logan, mornings no longer began with vacillation or second-guessing. They began with purpose. She stood in her new office, glass walls, clean lines, and a view that reminded her diurnal that she had stepped into commodity entirely her own. Logan Consulting Group was no longer a backup plan. It was a statement. Katie reviewed documents spread across her office, her expression concentrated, controlled. The woman who formerly avoided battle now ate it. Eric Forrester had tutored her a painful assignment. Trust without responsibility was dangerous. And she'd no way make that mistake again. Eric feels the shift. At Forrester Creations, Eric felt it far and wide: the vacillation in meetings, the guarded aesthetics, the exchanges that stopped when he entered the room. The respect was still there, but it was altered, pigmented with query. Rich noticed. People are hysterical of you now, Rich said bluntly during a private discussion. They always have been, Eric replied. No, Rich corrected him. They used to believe in you. That's different. Eric had no response. A surprising alliance. Katie's phone buzzed late one autumn with a name she hadn't anticipated: Carter Walton. When they met, Carter didn't desolate time. I've seen the documents Eric buried, he said still. Fairly, you're exposed. But so is he. Katie studied him precisely. Why are you helping me? Because what he did was wrong, Carter replied. And because the company needs responsibility. Indeed, if Eric wouldn't admit it. It was the first crack in Eric's inner circle. The pressure builds. Rumors of internal restructuring began oohing to the press. Captions questioned Eric's leadership. Shareholders demanded answers. And for the first time, Eric felt the walls closing in. Donna brazened him again. You can still fix this. Eric shook his head. By admitting I was wrong? Yes, she said vocally. By putting people before pride. But Eric wasn't ready. Katie and Bill: an uneasy moment. An unanticipated hassle with Bill Spencer left Katie unsettled. This time Bill didn't tease her. You've changed, he said. I had to, Katie replied. Because trusting men like you and Eric nearly destroyed me. Bill scowled. Careful. Power has a way of making people just as dangerous. Katie met his aspect. Without fear. Also, I'll make sure I use it better than you ever did. Eric's moment of verity. Late that night, Eric goggled at an abdication letter he drafted and had inked. Stepping down meant admitting failure. It meant admitting that the conglomerate he erected could survive without him. And worse, it meant admitting Katie had been right. Eric folded the letter, disaccorded, ignorant that the decision he made coming would determine not just his unborn, but the future of the entire Forrester heritage. The final note. Katie stood alone on her deck that evening, the megacity lights glowing below. She was celebrating. She was preparing. Because she knew commodity Eric hadn't yet accepted. The period of unbounded power was ending. And the women he undervalued were no longer staying to be hurt. They were ready to be heard.